Today, I want to talk about a question that I come across basically on a daily basis when I look through different travel forums and message boards, specifically for solo travelers. And a lot of people are asking the same question. Don't you get lonely and don't you get bored? Right? So if you go traveling solo, are you going to feel really lonely and cut away from the rest of the world? And also, how are you going to keep entertained if it's just you, right? So, I mean, I think it's a valid question. I think it's a question that keeps many people from even, it's a concern that keeps many people from even trying to go out on their own because they're just afraid of the crushing loneliness and just not knowing what to do with themselves. So, I want to talk about it. I don't really have a definitive answer because there are many different people and different people operate differently, right? Different people require different kinds of entertainment, different kinds of stimulation, different degrees of being social versus being alone. Everybody is different in sort of their personalities and how much tolerance and intolerance they have towards hanging out and toward being alone, right? So, but I can definitely talk about how it has been for me and the other things that I've noticed with other travelers. So I think, first of all, I think it's a myth that solo travel is some kind of a lonely, hermetic uh, kind of an undertaking, because in my experience, I've traveled partnered up, I've traveled, with a couple of people at a time, and then I've traveled extensively by myself. And I can tell you that if you're someone who is into being social and into hanging out, traveling solo, you will probably be doing more socializing with more and newer people than you would be doing if you would be traveling with a partner or with a group or whatever. And that is because, when you're by yourself, a lot of doors open to you because it's just you. It's just like, being one person, it's always easier to squeeze into that like fully packed car or bus or whatever because it's just little old you. You're not a big burden to anybody by hanging out, by tagging along. I think what happens is this, when you travel solo, you do everything on your own, right? That's what scares people. You eat by yourself, you walk around, you go to museums, you visit landmarks, you go on different rides, you sign up for tours, you do all of that by yourself. So that makes it sound like you're always by yourself, but it's actually the opposite. Because you're on your own, you're forced to interact with a gazillion people. You have to set up all your own, tourist activities and tours and hiring people and figuring out the transportation and all of that stuff is going to collide you with a million people that you have to, one way or another, to communicate with. It's going to collide you with a million other travelers who try to do the same thing. It's going to collide you with a million locals who are just trying to be helpful and or just hanging out and you strike up friendships. There's a lot more opportunity for meeting new people and for hanging out with more people and with for going out. The thing about solo travel is that it's entirely up to you how much you want to socialize. You want to call it a day and spend the whole day, swinging in a hammock on your balcony and reading a book? You can do that and you don't have to ask anybody's permission for that or coordinate that with anybody. But if you feel like having company, if you feel like, going out and ripping it up, on a night out on the town, you can do that solo and run into a million other people. If you were in a hostel, you're already going to have like buddies that you can go out with. If you're, hanging out by yourself, if you're renting a place by yourself and you just stay in places that are teeming with people that have a lot of different offerings and, go plant yourself in a coffee shop or a bar or whatever, whatever your choice of of establishment is, and eventually you're going to try to strike up conversations with other solo travelers, or other groups of people are going to wave you over to their table because they're going to see you sitting by yourself. And there's just, it's difficult to describe until you kind of been there. And once you've been there, you know that this is part of the travel flow. You go out there, you put yourself out in different visible public places, and if you are, friendly, if you're not putting off like a freezing out of everybody vibe, you're going to strike up a million different conversations and friendships, and possibly lifelong connections for So don't think that, don't let the word solo and solo travel make you think that you are now going to be in this isolated vacuum, uh, looking into the outside world from a completely secluded space. No, absolutely not. You're going to be more socially exposed than ever. And it's going to be, the beautiful thing about solo travel is that the freedom of how much or how little socializing you do is entirely up to you. That's what's great about it. Um, if you're an introvert, hang back, take it slow. If you're an extrovert, go to places that are popular with, people your age, and like start chatting with everybody. Next thing you know, you get invited to a million places, parties, people. It's just, the party doesn't have to end if you don't want it to. So don't assume that you're going to be lonely. Um, the second question is, are you going to be bored? Now, it's a good question, and you probably know the answer to that yourself better than, I can answer it for you. Are you someone who gets easily bored? Are you someone who needs to be constantly entertained by other people sort of entertaining you? Or are you someone who brings their own entertainment wherever they go? It's kind of, it's really what you're used to that's going to determine initially whether you're bored or not. If you are constantly swimming in attention from other people, if someone's always checking up on you, if someone's always inviting you places, if you're used to not having to take your own initiative to socialize, yeah, you might struggle initially, but what a great way to learn to sort of take charge of your own social life. So solo travel may actually help you. It's really kind of up to you. Even if you're someone who gets bored easily, do you want to not be a person who gets bored easily? Because then solo travel might cure you of that. Again, you might have, it's not all going to be, uh, a fun ride. Some of those parts, sometimes you're going to feel lonely. Sometimes you're going to feel homesick. And by lonely, I don't mean, you know, oh my God, there's no one around. Just, you can be surrounded by people and feel lonely, right? Like we're human beings. We go through different phases. We go through different experiences. Sometimes we go through downs. Sometimes we go through ups. Sometimes we feel lonely. Sometimes we feel overwhelmed by social environments. It's all kind of a balance, and different people are different. So you can't expect travel to either cure everything for you overnight, nor to be 100%, Disney World, 100% some kind of, you know, fun entertainment ride. It's solo travel, anything really you do is part of life, right? You may leave behind certain annoyances, certain hindrances, but you still take yourself along with yourself. Your personality comes with you, your good and bad habits come with you, and your baggage comes with you. So, if you are someone who tends to feel lonely when left alone on their own at home in your home comfortable environment, then you might also feel lonely if you hit the road by yourself. But remember, it's a lot more interesting out there than it is, back in your home. You can definitely fill your time with getting to know a new place, the whole point of travel, right? You're there to explore. Do you really need other people to take you by the hand and tell you, okay, here's where you go today, here's where you go tomorrow, here's where you're eating? No, you don't actually need that. You might think that you need that. You might be used to that from regular life, but you won't know until you try and see and maybe possibly discover that, hey, it's actually great to eat by myself once in a while. It's great when nobody's telling me where I'm going today because then I can decide where I'm going. It's great when no one's breathing down my neck and pressuring me to do this or that. Yeah, the flip side is that you actually have to own 100% of the responsibility of what you do in your travels when you travel solo, right? It means you don't get to blame somebody for picking the wrong itinerary. You don't get to blame your partner for waking up too late and missing something. It's entirely up to you what you do and don't do. So I think in that way, people do feel like they're saddled with new responsibility because they're not used to thinking and deciding this basic shit for themselves. And maybe it's high time that, they learn. And, and not out of some kind of moralistic intention, but because like you may just feel much more on top of your shit and much more competent after you go out there. You have all these reservations about how am I going to do by myself? Am I going to feel bored? Am I going to feel lonely? Am I going to be lost? And then you go ahead and you discover, hey, this is pretty good. Okay, it's different. Okay, it's got its own pros and cons, but you know what? I'm really digging this. And I'm feeling really strong and self-sufficient right now. And from now on, I'm going to know that I don't need anybody. That if I want to travel with other people, it's because I want to travel with these particular people that I get along with really well. Not because I'm desperate for anybody to come along with me just to fill that empty space next to me. There is no empty space. You should really, I think most people would really benefit from becoming their own best friend and travel partner. It doesn't mean that you have to commit to a life of loneliness and complete aloneness and stoicness and all of that stuff. You can have partners. You can have wives and husbands and partners and companions and all kinds of other people. But don't you think it's generally a better foundation to build a relationship on when you say, you know what? I don't need anybody and I don't need anything, but you are wonderful and I love you and I want to be with you and I want to continue being with you because it's a mutually beneficial feeling of love and desire and companionship, not because I need somebody to like to lean on as a crutch for the rest of my life because I don't know how to be alone. You don't want to be the kind of a person who doesn't know how to be alone. You don't have to love it. You don't have to become, a recluse like me. That's what happened to me. I love it a little too much. I love my aloneness, sometimes to my own detriment. Because you actually, even when you're an introvert like me, it helps to at least have one foot in like social life. You have one foot in your private personal life where you live inside your own head and you write and you create, ideas. But then it really does help to have one foot in the social life, if for no other reason than to just not completely lose your social graces. That's happened to me before, where I would be too consumed by my aloneness, where I would go for so long without speaking to other people where next time I was in the social situation, I was like, I've forgotten how to speak. I don't really know how to socialize with other human beings because I live too much inside my head. So you see, it's always a balance, and the specific balance that you need is going to have to be determined by you, but sometimes you don't know until you try. So the idea is to live your life, to take risks, to try out different things. If solo travel sounds like a really cool thing, but you have your reservations, go ahead and do it anyway. I would never, go at random people who have zero interest in travel and be like, you have to travel solo, you owe it to yourself. No, not everybody is interested in that kind of thing. Not everybody's a traveler, explorer, or discoverer. Okay, but if you have that spirit and you want to, but you're just kind of like a little bit unsure, do it. Do it. I mean, this is why I'm writing my guidebook, and with any luck, it will be finished really soon, you guys. Like I'm really working hard on getting this information to you because, like, seriously, I keep coming up against so many young people saying, "Oh my God, I really want to do this, but I have all these questions, I have all these uncertainties." And I answer all of these questions and lay to rest all of these uncertainties in my guidebook. So I'm just kind of like dying myself to release it out there so you guys can read it and see for yourselves. Because there's only so much I can put in these videos. Anyway, um, so let me just sign off, and I gotta say again, if the road is calling your name, you owe it to yourself to give it a shot, even if you're a little scared, especially if you're a little scared, because overcoming that little scaredness is going to be even more rewarding on the other side. When you're out there doing it, and you're like, oh my God, not only am I living my dreams, but I feel a sense of achievement for having, overcome myself and taking these and having taken that risk. So I feel even more confident and cool and awesome and badass for it. Anyway, it's a pretty great feeling, you guys. I strongly recommend it, and I wish it to every single person who's ever wanted to travel. So do it. Anyway, I'll be back with more videos at some point later, hopefully soon. And I wish everybody happy and safe travels. And until next time.